I just needed one person, and you were that one person, to tell me like, you could do it, you know, because everybody else was telling me no. They were like, deal with it, not deal with it, but like, they were like, yeah, deal with it pretty much. You were one of the first people that told me that I could, and I really appreciate you for that. And then even going through the program, I remember we were talking about like yachts or something like that. And I was like, I'm gonna own a yacht one day. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna have, Purpose Driven Latina, or yeah, Courage Driven Latina on the yacht. I'm like, heck yeah, like we're gonna do this. So like, it gave me the opportunity to get really excited and like, say like, this is possible.
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Erica Cruz, your host. And today I am joined by a guest. And I'm very excited because this conversation is a good conversation. We talk everything entrepreneurship. We talk everything about being a veteran and serving in the military. We also talk about real estate. We talk about overcoming health challenges and the power of your mindset. We talk about the power of community. And I'm excited for you to listen to this podcast episode because it really is full of gems. We jam-packed it in an episode where we talk about a lot of different topics. And my guest today is Lourdes Fernando, who is a passionate advocate for veterans and a Chicago realtor specializing in VA loans, which are veteran loans. I didn't know that until I visited her in Chicago. She is an 11-year Army National Guard veteran, and she empowers fellow veterans, particularly women, to achieve financial independence and stability through strategic use of the benefits that they have from being in the military. So over 90% of her business does focus on assisting veterans in securing home ownership. But even if you're not a veteran, even if you're not a homeowner, this is still a good podcast episode for you to listen to because we talk all about community, all about being a first-time home buyer and different programs to look at. But beyond real estate, Lourdes actively engages in her community initiatives, serving as the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at Keller Williams Realty. She also is the person who created like the Women's Veterans Society in the Chicago area as well, because it did not exist. And her dedication has earned her recognition, including the REALTOR Community Service Award, underscoring her commitment to supporting and uplifting the veteran community. All right, let's get into this podcast episode. Hello, welcome back to this week's episode of Chingona Revolution podcast. I have a wonderful guest here today that I've known in many capacities, from a childhood friend, like a family friend, and also a client at some point when Courage Driven Latina was just starting out. And more recently, I would say a really good friend. So this person hosted me when I was in Chicago, and I cannot stop thinking about Chicago. Like, she was such a good host. It was such a vibe. And it was still kind of winter time, right? It was like barely becoming spring. So I'm going to have to make my way back. But this person is none other than Lourdes Fernando. So welcome, Lourdes. I know you as Lulu, but what would you like me to call you?
I mean, I go by many names, but I used to go with my maiden name, like all these names. But yeah, Lulu's fine.
Awesome. So tell us, for the people who maybe weren't in Courage Driven Latina with you, or who maybe don't know you, because I know a lot of people that know you are going to be listening as well. But for the people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. So I served 11 years in the Army National Guard, California Army National Guard. So I'm a very proud veteran. I'm in the veteran space here in the Chicagoland area. Originally from California, lived in Seattle for 4 years, and then moved to Chicago. I've been here 7 years now, which is like crazy. It's definitely the longest place I've been, and definitely consider this my home. Out here, I'm a real estate agent, and then also a real estate investor, and then I also run a a all women's veterans division with Chicago Veterans, which is a local nonprofit in the Chicagoland area. And then I also volunteer with a variety of different nonprofits and particularly around the woman veteran space. But that's not all I do. But I'm a very strong advocate for military veterans.
I agree. I think you are a community builder and you give back in so many ways. And it took me being there to really understand the scope of the level of involvement that you're in all of these different areas. So, from serving in the National Guard to becoming a force in real estate, and this is like a loaded question because I feel like we could literally do a whole podcast episode just on this question. But can you walk us through one of the biggest challenges that you faced post service, and how has that experience shaped your mission to empower other veterans, right? Because it's like, it's a big transition to go from being in the military to becoming a real estate agent. And I'm sure there was so many obstacles.
Yeah. So, we're so military, it's all about, discipline. It's all about hierarchy. It's about, respect and getting stuff done. So, I did, the skill set that I got in the military was, go by a schedule and go by a system. And that was, and be a leader and go out there and influence. So those are the things that I did get from the military that I translated over to my real estate business. The biggest difference is now I'm out and I'm dealing with certain challenges from the traumas that I sustained in the military. So now I have to be an entrepreneur. It's not first and 15th. It's not I clock off of work at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock whenever I would get off of work. It is like a 24-hour like job type of thing. So I'm like always on. And where do you like find that balance? And that's something I feel like I'm really trying to um master now. Like the business is great. Like I will do what I need to do until the job is done, not until like I clock out. So that's kind of like one of the differences from the military from civilian life. And what I found is I really worked at my niche. So most of my business in real estate is the military community. So there is that, I get to help them not just find a house, but help them get their benefits and, start working on some of the issues that they had while in service. So just continue to educate them with like everything as a whole and the benefits that we have as veterans. And if that space isn't created, I found like a little avenue to make that space. So, or like, make it happen working with different individuals. So that's just kind of the transition. And I know you said like what has been like some of the challenges, but I think it was just not having that security as I had when I was in the military. So not having that, because if you don't work as an entrepreneur, you don't get paid. So
Yeah.
that's kind of terrifying, to be
For
honest with you.
sure. Yeah. And I remember we had a conversation about this in your car when we were in Chicago about how it was just such a big difference to go from a job that was extremely structured, right? And there was like a right way and a wrong way of doing things. And suddenly you become this entrepreneur where yeah, there's guidance and there's mentorship. And we can talk about that a little later because you've really invested in yourself. And I think that that's been key to your success, but still it's up to you. Right. And there's really no right or wrong way. And to your point, I think people are like, oh, as an entrepreneur, you can like work whenever you want. And while that's true, what you mentioned is also true. You're working all the time because if you don't make sales, you aren't making money. And there's a lot of pressure from the uncertainty of entrepreneurship, right? Nothing's guaranteed. You're going to have negative months and you're going to have like high cash months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny you say that because someone was like, you make your own schedule, right? And I'm all like, yeah, I do. But like if my calendar is open between, 6 in the morning to like whatever, like typically like I throw things on my calendar. So I'm all like, so kind of sort of, you know.
Yeah. And especially for you, because you have clients that you meet in person, right? To do open houses, to do inspections. So your schedule is even more at risk of, being saturated because you have to be flexible for other people's time as well. And that's, I think, what makes you such a good real estate representative for people.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's take it back really quick. What inspired you to join the military in the first place?
Oh boy. So there was a few factors. I had two cousins. They were one served in the Marines, other one was currently in the Marine Corps, and I loved like how they gave back to the family. I loved how it was a total transformation between them. And I grew up kind of like a tomboy, so like that was just kind of like my vibe. And I always thought that it was like really cool to be like in the military. And I think the biggest thing that really pushed me to join the military was a conversation that I heard my mom and my dad having. My mom was working really hard so that she could put me and my sister through college, and my sister had gotten pregnant, and my dad was like came to me and was like, I'm not going to pay for your college. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not the one that had the kid. Like, what is going on? And she was pregnant and not even, whatever. But it was that conversation and they were putting her through college. So I felt that like I had to kind of pave my own way. And I saw my mom was working a lot, and I was really scared that like my tuition, and I didn't, to be honest, I didn't even want to go to school. I barely even graduated high school. So I was like, I don't want to go to college. Like, that's not in my books. So the only way to and my mom told me I didn't have a choice. She was like, you're going to go to college. So, so I was like, all right, cool. Well, the military is a great way to like, one, get out of here. Cause I didn't want to go to school right away, but, do my service, and it does pay for college. So I was able to get 2 master's degrees through my benefits through the military for free, and I didn't have to pay nothing. So just goes to show, if you work it correctly, like you can obtain whatever you need from service. So I figured out that that would be the best way. So it was a combination of like giving my mom like a way out, um, giving her a way out, paying for my education, and then following the footsteps that my two cousins left for me.
Amazing. And to your point about, like leveraging the benefits that you get from it, one of your specialties is also VA loans, right? Which I didn't know what VA loans were until I arrived in Chicago and I heard you talking about them, and then I was like, oh, a veteran loan. So,
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients who are either like military spouses, and only a few who are veterans, including yourself. But
Mhm.
what is a VA loan, and how, like, because I think that's kind of what your niche is, right? That's how you really made your impact in the community, especially when it comes to helping women veterans find financial freedom through real estate. So can you tell us what a VA loan is and why it's important for you to help other women veterans find financial freedom?
Yeah. So it's kind of a two-part answer. So I'll give you kind of what it is and how I used it
Okay.
personally. So the VA loan allows any veteran who honorably served their term to use benefits towards purchasing a home. Now, if you purchase a home, it can be, you have to put 3.5% down if it's FHA, up to 5%, 10%, 20%, just depends. So with the VA loan, it is 100% financing. So you don't have to bring any money down, which is saving a tremendous amount of upfront cost for a veteran, making home ownership more obtainable. So that's one. It's also federally backed by the VA. So it kind of lessens that. The only reason you do have to put a down payment down is just so that there is some type of a guarantee, some type of skin in the game. So the government backs your loan, which is great. There's higher debt to income ratios. There's no credit score requirements, and it just makes it a little bit easier. So one of the things that I do with all my veteran clients is I look at the budget, like where do you feel comfortable spending, and see if we can work backwards, and then seeing if there's anything else that they qualify, like if they qualify for property tax exemptions, just so that they say, okay, this is going to be your payment now, this is going to be your payment later. Like, are you okay with these things once your exemption kicks in? So really working with the veterans to figure out if this is in their budget. I know when I was in service, like I got paid something and I would spend it all and more. I would put money on my credit card. So I didn't have like the best budgeting like strategy. And, when I advise my clients to, use their benefit, I also say like, this is your time to like really make sure that you can budget just in case something happens, in case any type of deferred maintenance or anything should happen, you should have the funds to fix that. So that's one. And how I personally used my VA home loan was to create generational wealth. And that's something that I'm also teaching my clients. It's not specific to women veterans. My real estate business is predominantly males right now, and I'm doing as much education as I can to kind of shift that over a little bit. But for veterans in general, I used my VA loan to purchase a multi-unit building, which is a 4-unit, and I didn't have to put any money down. And at that time that I purchased this property, which you stayed at, but the time that I purchased it, it was the time where if it was over the FHA allowable, uh, or I'm sorry, the unit count, if it was over a certain unit count, you had to put 20% down. So it was VA loans or conventional loans at 20% down. And that was like my competition. So, and it was during COVID. And so I swept right in and I got $1 million property, which I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd ever like become a millionaire using my benefits. But that's exactly what happened. And then I just had to save as much money as I can. And I was a real estate agent. So I saved every single like check that I had. I was married at the time, and everything of my paychecks was going to cover debt. Once I hit the debt covered, I think I paid off $75,000 of household debts between mine and my ex-husband. I started saving money, and I saved another 45,000, which is a lot. And I barely can save, anything. And I was in the hole when I came here. In the hole, I mean like $20,000 of debt when I arrived here to Chicago. And I adding to that because I didn't have any money. I was a real estate agent. I think the first year I made negative $6,000. I don't know how that is possible. And then going from that to like clearing out debt and working really hard and doing what I had to do.
Wow. Okay. I there's so many things I want to ask you about, but I think you obviously just talked about buying this multi-unit property, which for other people are like, oh my gosh, that's cool. But that's a big ass deal. It is such a big deal to bet on yourself, especially under the circumstances that you just described. And I mean, as I mentioned earlier, so you and my brother are around, you're in the same grade, right? You were in the same grade at school. So I've known you since I was a child. And then our paths reconnected when you were at this crossroads. So I feel like I have a little insider look into like how this was actually a really challenging thing for you to do. And it's funny because the program that you were in at the time was Purpose Driven Latina. It wasn't even called Courage Driven Latina, but I feel like you were practicing courage. So being that you were buying this $1 million multi-unit property and you were in debt, I mean, the amount of courage it took for you to bet on yourself at that moment, like what were some of the fears you had when you were making that decision, when you signed for the property, when you were, I mean, you really were going through such a transitional moment. And I feel like that was your pivotal moment. So can you walk us through the fears that maybe were coming through and how did you get yourself to go take the action?
Woo. Okay. Well, the whole backstory. So I'll have to give a little
And
bit of
feel free to
context.
share whatever you want to share. You don't have to share anything you don't feel comfortable sharing.
So my marriage was failing horribly. At that point, like, we tried marriage counseling, like all these things. And, it was pretty bad to the point where, I got under contract. I didn't really share any information, with, my husband at the time. And he was like, this is it. You're going to get your billing and you don't need me no more. So there was some circumstances and, I ended up like homeless and he kicked me out. It was like, I need you to stay at a hotel, or I need you to stay somewhere for the night. And I'm all like, like for one night or for like ever, like, what's the deal? He was like, I don't know. And I'm all like, okay. And, at that point, like I'm pretty terrified. Terrified to stay there at all. So I just grabbed all my stuff and I ended up staying at my friend's house. So I'm like, the day that I closed on this property, if I would have stayed in a hotel, I would have never had the money too. So I'm forever indebted with my best friend Anel. And had she not like opened her doors for me and allowed me to stay there, then I would have never had the building because I would have had to spend the money in hotels or housing. So I'm still trying to close on this property, do what I need to do, and every single obstacle that you can possibly overcome or issue or have during that transaction, like I hit it, from the IRS not processing my transcripts to like a 1099 contractor. I mean, every obstacle that you can hit, I was like a problem, problem buyer. I hit. So the day that I got the keys to my building, I did the closing. Like I'm standing in front of my building. I'm like, I have no one to celebrate this with. Like I'm on a failing marriage. Like I worked so hard for 3 years to get this building. And like, what is this for? Like it cost me everything. So I didn't have like that cheerful like moment. And I think I was in your program at the time. And, I remember like I was down in the unit and I was like trying to like mask all of my like emotions and be like, this wasn't like a very difficult thing that happened emotionally, mentally, like in every capacity. And on top of that, like, what's going to happen if something breaks? What is going to happen? Like, I'm not handy, like, I don't know how to like, mount a TV. Now I learned, but like, I don't know how to do these things. Like, what am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to call on? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm still, in a marriage, like, and I'm, do I start something fresh? Do I, so it was like so much. So it was just one of the most, like terrifying moments of my life because, and I don't even have family here. I forgot to mention that I'm from California. So the only family I had was my nephew. And I'm all like, he's so young. Like I can't, expect him to help me with every single little thing. And he has, but like, it wasn't like, I can't expect that, but he definitely helped me out in so many ways possible. So
Wow. Okay. So what I heard from that is community was key, even if you
yeah.
didn't have your family, right? Because a lot of people, even if they have their family nearby, they can't count on them. So community is very important. And then the other thing that I heard was that when you are practicing courage, it doesn't always feel great, even
Yeah.
after the fact. But how do you feel now? How do you feel now having your unit and the building that I had the honor of staying in and host VIP days in? So yeah, what does it feel like now?
Oh, it feels great. It's been an opportunity. Like I've never thought I would be in a position to get paid to live in a place. So that's what this property has done. It's forwarded me, a lot of opportunities that I never thought would be possible. I'm under contract right now with another 4 unit, which I'm really excited about, and it's a renovation loan. So now I'm like, doing what I always wanted to do was in that space. So this has given me the ability to, grow my portfolio and I think I have a really good contractor now, which is working on the building as we speak. But like,
Beautiful.
yeah, so I think all of the issues that I had, I even I had my first Airbnb. So I do Airbnb as well as midterm rentals. Um, and I had to evict my some tenants back in December, and then I've been having like this plumbing issue, this mysterious plumbing issue now that I have someone staying in the unit that you went to see, and I just found out that maybe they did it, maybe somebody else did it, but somebody put a bag of weave inside of a plastic bag, flushed it down the toilet, and it's been causing some plumbing issues. So that's out now,
Oh man,
and
what a headache.
yeah. So now I talked to my contractor and he's like, yeah, there's a pit that you can put a grinder on. So like anything that comes through it will grind it before it goes into your plumbing. I'm like, you know what? Yes. let's let's do this just to avoid any further issues that may arise just because, you never know. People try to destroy, something that you have. So I think it's a great investment. It's given me the opportunity to learn, to really work with people, still provide them that, I guess it's hospitality. So still provide
Mhm.
them with that, good experience. And, it's, I think you have mentioned like when you're here, like, oh, it's so peaceful here. It's just like, having a place of peace and that I can come home to and like relax and just really unwind and, get paid to do it. So I think it's a great, it's a great thing. I love
Yeah.
it.
So the I just like we were talking about with entrepreneurship and how people say, oh, yeah, you can work whenever you want. I think people think of real estate in the same way, where they're like, oh, yeah, like just invest in that. And then you make all this money. But they fail to consider that there are other things like
Yeah.
making repairs and plumbing
Mhm.
issues. And these are all
Mhm.
things that inevitably will happen, hopefully not to, the extent of having tenants that maybe did something like that on purpose, but it's still things that you have to consider, right? It's not always just easy money, but if you're up for it, I think it's totally worth it, especially based on what I've seen with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't skate out on like, different maintenance. Like that is now I'm like, even when I was out the other day, like cleaning, leaves from my like gutter, I'm like, oh my God, it must disgust it smells so bad, like straight up sewage. And I'm like, I had gloves on, but I was just like, this is like not fun, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just because I'm too cheap to pay a plumber to come out here right now at 9 o'clock on a Sunday to do this. I was like, I'll do it myself. And I'm just like, look, like, you know, I'm like, but then again, it's just kind of like when I was in the military, they made me dig a hole in the ground and I had to sleep in this hole for 3 days. And I was all like, and it was raining. So I was all like, I've done some like crazy things in my life that like, I mean, it definitely tested like every, like, I'm shivering, just like it's cold and I'm in a hole and I'm just covered by a poncho and it's freezing and I'm wet and I'm, cuddling my M16 and I'm all like, this is like the worst day of my life. So I've done some like crazy and you know, I've tested myself in so many ways possible. So when I see something like that, I'm like, yeah, sucks, but like I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So about the building, there's also something you want to do with this building that you were telling me about when I was there. And I think this is you are the perfect example of turning your pain and your struggles into purpose. And you experienced what it was like to not have a place to go, to not have a safe place. So the unit that you allowed me to use for the VIP days, you mentioned you wanted to provide housing, right, for women's veterans who needed a place like a transitional home. Can you tell us about this vision that you have?
Yeah, so it's definitely have shifted within the last so I've been praying about it. I've been just seeing kind of like what's out there and right now my workload is so heavy that I haven't really put this down on paper, but I've been thinking about it nonstop. And so I've spoke with another woman veteran in the area, and she has a program on whole health, pretty much, finances, fitness, mental, physical, like whole thing. And she has a program for 12 months. And I'm like, how can we join forces? And like, this is like what I want to do. So at first I was on the transitional side, like, providing space, a safe space, a very nice, beautiful, safe space for women veterans to come in and be able to be here, feel relaxed, get out of their situation, but then also have all the resources that they need to get to that next level. And then I was like, not only that, but like I want the mental aspect of it because it was so hard. When I was in that situation where I'm all like, I need to go out now, like now, today, and I want somewhere to stay, but like I need to be around, I can't just go to like, well, I could go to a hotel, but like where can I go where I'm actually gonna get the help and the resources that I need? So I want to create that for the woman veteran population, but actually have like a not like a boot camp, but like a program where they like are getting all right, like whatever they want to work on, we're helping them achieve that. So that's where we're at right now. And with the other woman veteran, she has a 12-month program and it's broken down into 12 weeks. And like, I'm like, everything is like in the 12. So I'm like, all right, there's going to be a 12-week program. Whatever you're doing, like, let's just encompass this. And then we'll just make sure that this is the safe space. And I'm in, I think I had mentioned, I do run a woman veterans monthly gathering,
Which
which
you initiated because that didn't exist. So, okay, keep going.
I'm shaking my head like the listeners can like see what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, correct. Which I initiated. And I guess I'll jump into that real quick since it's very important. I guess I'm doing the things that I wish I had when I was in this situation, to be honest
Definitely.
with you.
Yeah.
So so yeah, so when I was told I had to leave my house, um, I want to create that safe space for people in that same situation, whether transitional out of the military, transitioning out of a relationship, or even if you're good and you're like, I just really need that community and I really need that space to kind of like get my life back in order. That's where I want to go. So that's what I want to create. And that's why I'm so focused on getting so many buildings and so much real estate, is so that I have places to put them in essence. So yeah, so there's that. And I started the women veteran events because I was one or maybe two woman veterans and like 50 male veterans. And I would always just gravitate to that other woman veteran and we would talk, but it was like really difficult to be in that environment. Although, a lot of them are my brothers out here and I love them to death. And, I'm not saying that like I'm like just with, with the women veterans, but I wanted a safe space for from women veterans to come to where they didn't have to feel that they were, reliving the traumas that they lived when they were in the military. There is a lot of military sexual trauma that happens, a lot of sexual harassment, rape. I mean, there's so much that happened to women while in service. And when they get out of service, they don't want to be around that. So, creating that safe space for women veterans to come, not to bring their friends, and I don't allow them to bring their friends, but just for them to come to cultivate and build relationships with other women veterans in the area. And if you would see what is going on out here in the women veteran space, it is so powerful. And there's so many people that are doing events on their own. And they they're calling women veterans like, hey, let's go hang out. Like, some of my like best friends are women veterans. So you get to build and cultivate these relationships outside of these events. And then we get to do some really cool things. Cooking classes. We've done wake surfing, spa days. We're doing a golfing event, paint and sip. I mean, every single event is different. The only ones we keep together is the gift exchange at the end of the year. We always do that. And then there's always a spa day. So those two are the only ones that I like always make sure we throw in. But everything else is different. We're going to be doing riding horses. I met the director of Chicago Bulls group sales, or something with group sales with Chicago Bulls. And we're going to have an outing for women veterans with the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to make sure we get our Bears tickets. So there's like a lot of like community like outreach that is coming specifically for the program. So I think it's really cool.
Amazing. And how crazy is it to think just 4 years ago, like 4.5 years ago, you'd gotten your building, you had nobody to celebrate with. And look at now how many people you have around you because of the community that you've built. So it's really one of those things, like sometimes people are like, oh, I don't have the people around me that I want around me. And when that happens, you have to build it. And
Yeah.
that's why I created Courage Driven Latina, why you created the Women's Veterans Group, why even just like your immediate friends who I got to meet whenever I was out in Chicago, right? Or you hanging out with the girls who were in the program now. They weren't even in the program at the same time as you. But I think community building it really is the key to making a difference.
Yeah.
And I love your story and how you went from feeling like, damn, I don't have anybody, to like now you have an abundance of
Yeah,
friendship and community around you.
for sure.
A question that I have for you just about like real estate in general, what would you say to somebody? Because I know this is a lot of people in my community. What would you say to somebody who their parents, by the time they were their age, had multiple properties, but obviously with like housing prices and things like that, they haven't been able to buy their first home and maybe they're feeling discouraged. So what would you say to somebody who like wants to be a first time home buyer and is like, damn, I don't even know if that's going to be possible for me with everything that's like all the changes that are going on in the market with politics, all these different things. What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I would really just look at the budget and lifestyle. I want to say like just make sure that that's affordable, because a lot of people don't. They'll come to me and they say, "Hey, I want payments at this, but I want to live in this part of you know, this part of the area of Chicago." And I'm like, you know what? That's for that budget. We have to be here. So I think really understanding home ownership can be for everyone if it makes sense for you. So that's the biggest thing. The reason I didn't go from a single family home and I knew that this transition and I went to a multi-unit was to get assistance for rent, like or for my mortgage.
Mhm.
I'm all like, I need some assistance because now I'm going from a two household income to a one household income. And am I going to be able to sustain that? Am I going to be able to afford the same lifestyle that I had before? So,
Right.
um, in that transition, I was like, I can't go to a single family home and I don't want to go to a condo. I want to go to an investment property just so that I can be in a better financial situation. So that is something that you have to just make sure that your budget is in alignment with your lifestyle and what you tend to do, because being a homeowner is very expensive. It comes with so many perks, especially with equity potential, because if you, for example, I can go buy a house cash with the equity that I have in my building now,
Mm.
but am I going to go buy a house? No, I'm going to go buy some more buildings. But I'm going to just do that just to be able to not work as much as I have to work. It's funny when, sometimes they have like, parties or I can hear downstairs, I wake up, I'm like, oh, it's just my money waking me up and I go back to sleep. It's not that bad. Of course, if it's like, I had a different situation, but as long as like I feel that my lifestyle and my budget makes sense, then I go down the homeowner route, or maybe we go with the condo, or maybe we go with the multi-unit. So it's just
Mhm.
really understanding that aspect, and then look at the resources that are out there is another thing. There are loan products that if you're police officers, first responders, it's 100% financing, so it can make it a little bit more achievable. Even if you're EMT, so there's other programs for teachers, there's program for nurses, doctors, there's program, and a lot of doctors, they have a lot of student debt, so
Right.
that can be like a hindrance, especially if
Right.
they're brand new. So there's
Mhm.
so many programs for different jobs. I was just talking to a representative yesterday that was going to give a $25,000 grant for a specific county, and it's a county specific type of thing. So I wasn't aware of that before until one of my clients brought it to me, and I'm like, yeah, this is like, let's go, let's make it
Amazing.
happen. So there's so many programs and things out there for you, just to reach out and say like, hey, what do I qualify for? What can I do? So that's it.
Amazing. I just have a couple more questions for you. One of them is about you suffered an injury that was hindering your ability to show up and to work. And I really am impressed with your mindset around the entire thing. And I'm wondering if you can share that with us. Like, you don't have to share details about like what happened, but you were given a certain kind of the doctors told you one thing and you were like, yeah, not gonna let that be my truth. So share whatever you feel comfortable sharing about this, but I think it's really powerful how you overcame this. So that's why I wanted to ask about it.
Okay, yeah. So, I was paralyzed, so I couldn't feel anything from my waist down. And then I felt like a bear hug from my waist up, and then shortly after, I developed paralysis in my hands, which was very like, I think, yeah. It was probably one of the most traumatizing moments of my life, and it was shortly after, my divorce, not even a whole month after, and, I went to the VA. The VA was just like, "Yeah, you're just crazy, go home, and we'll send you these people to your house," and I'm like, "Cool," like, I can't even cook myself some food, like, how am I supposed to eat? So, I jumped into more holistic approaches, acupuncture. I saw several specialists. When I tell you, like, I hit my savings hard. Good thing I had some savings, because I think every month or every week I was like at least $500 of like experimentation of like getting right, like, these specialists and doing what I needed to do, because they said I was going to be The paralysis wouldn't last 2 years, and that lasted 2 months. And they said that my walking was going to be like 6 months, and it only took me 3 weeks. So I focused on eating what I needed to eat. I did a Dr. Sebi cleanse, and I took the herbs that you know that he followed, and I did a 30-day cleanse, which reduced the amount of inflammation internally that you have when you're when you have an injury or what have you. So I did that, and I just started to do my therapy when my occupational therapist, physical therapist would leave. I still did those exercises, and I would never forget. So anytime I lifted my arm like up here, like it would just go like wacky, like it would just go crazy. So I couldn't even like microwave any food because it was up here, and this was like, I don't know, it was just weird. So there were certain things I could do and couldn't do. I would still try to go to my computer and like type, and when you have paralysis, my hand was just, it wasn't functioning the way I wanted it to. I couldn't grasp anything, couldn't cut anything. I couldn't wash my hair. Like it was really bad. And they gave me housemakers to come and help out, and they weren't the best quality of people, so I kept firing them. And then I just cried to one of my friends after not being able to eat for 2 days, I think, not physically being able to eat. And she came over and she cooked for me, and she was crying. She was like, I never like would think that you're this bad. And I just sat here, by myself. And like I told my nephew, I was like, Mijo, like you need to take over the business right now. And he's young, and he was like, okay, Thea, like I gotta do what I gotta do to like keep the business afloat. And he did an amazing job, and I had him focusing on that. And I was like, you focus on that, I'm gonna 100% focus on my health. And at that point, that's what I did, is I just focused on my health. I can still talk. And I had my one of my tenants, she was in medical school, and she was one of my first tenants, and we hit it off really well. And then she was like, where'd you go? And I was up in the hospital. I was admitted, like all this stuff. And she came over and she reviewed like all of my stuff. And I told her, I was like, I want a more holistic approach. This is the 30 pills that, the doctors gave me, and I don't want to take those pills. So she put me on something, and she told me like, you have to like ease back into your normal life. She was like, because if you accept your condition, you're not going to get better. So between eating holistically, these acupuncturists, chiropractors, chakra healers, like when I tell you I did everything. I thought maybe a ghost was on me. I was like, look, I'm like, I need clear, una limpia, like give me like what I need. So I was like, I need it all to figure out what is going on, because the doctors couldn't figure it out. Nobody could figure it out. So just dealing with those things, and getting the help and the assistance needed, um and just not accepting that it was going to take that long for me to overcome, 2 years. Absolutely. You're this for 2 years. I was like, hell no, like it's not happening. Like I don't accept that. And even when I would go in, my doctors would tell me one thing. I remember after like the second MRI or third MRI, they were like, you need to come in right now. I'm like, why? They're like, because how are you functioning? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I just get occasional paralysis. They're like, how is that even? There's no way this is physically possible. Like, you need to come in now. I'm like, for what? Like, I'm good. Like, I could walk now. Like, I'm good. Like, my paralysis just acts up occasionally. So, like, I'm good. So they're like, okay, whatever you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, all right. So that's what I kept doing. And I just wouldn't like accept that. And,
Yeah.
I think, my friends who were there for me, because there was, my girls were there for me so much, my nephew tremendously, and just all the people that I had. And I did not even tell a lot of people that this was happening to me. My sister sent over my godson, and I'm just all like, I'm like, Mijo, go stay with your brother. I don't want you to see me like this. Because I could never show, like, I didn't like to show my nephews, like, that I
Right.
was ever in any type of, like, pain, sad. Like, I was always, like, strong and, like, happy. I was never, like, that a potato. So I was like, you know what? Let me deal with this on my own. And mentally, I was not in a good space mentally either.
Oh, I
Mentally, I
bet.
was really jacked up, because they kept telling me I was crazy. I was like, I know I got some issues, but I'm not that crazy for me to do this to myself. So Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable with us. Obviously, I think this goes without saying, neither Lourdes or I are providing medical advice here.
No,
But the
no,
point
no.
we are making is that the story that you tell yourself really matters. And when I was over at your place, I was telling you about Joe Dispenza and one of his books, it's called You Are the Placebo. And it's all about how like what we believe becomes reality. And he goes through some examples where there was a man that was falsely diagnosed with cancer and he died. And then they did the exams again and he actually didn't have cancer. And then the opposite is true. There's actually some veterans that had knee problems and it was 20 of them and 10 of them got the knee surgery and 10 of them only got the fake knee surgery, meaning they just opened them up and then closed them up. So they had the stitches and everything and they were they had anesthesia and everything. So they believed they went through the surgery and they found that every single person in the experiment got so much better. So what this goes to say, it doesn't mean don't go to the doctors. It doesn't mean only do holistic things. I think it's just allow yourself to believe that the possibility of getting better is a real thing for you. So that's why, because I feel like it takes a lot of mental resiliency to be in that headspace. And that's why I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah. And yeah, so it was the headspace, definitely 1000%. And then also like figuring out like I'm the type of person like if you like not if you tell me no, like but like if you yeah, if like medical professionals or people that, I'm out there seeking advice from people and they tell me
Yep.
no, I'm like, no, there has to be a way. There has to be a way. That's how I am.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the type of person I am. So I got to figure it out. So, and it didn't make any sense to me either for them to even say, like, we don't know what's wrong with you. Like, this is just in your head somehow. Like, so I'm thinking, if this is my head, I got to fix my head. Like, my head is playing with me right now. Like, my anxiety was at level 10. So I was like, oh boy. So I
Yeah.
had to even calm that down. And, there was some other
Makes
things that
sense.
happened as well. And so I just had to like take a step back and really believe in myself that I could do this. And when they would tell me stuff, I'd be like, nope, that ain't happening. Like I'm gonna figure this out. Like if I have to figure it out, I'm gonna figure it out and I'm gonna get it done
Yeah.
because, even though 2 months to me was like, that was, and it happened March, April, May. I think it was back to, and I even after that for a whole year, like I couldn't take a certain amount of clients and I couldn't drive at night. And there was a lot of limitations that came from this that I just kind of like, I put aside and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And that's kind of like shortly after is when the Women Veterans Program, almost a year later, is when the Women Veteran kicked into effect because I'm like, I need community. I need that support. I need this in my life, and where I could just be free and open and stuff. But yeah, so that's that.
Yeah. What do you think? This wasn't I said I had two more questions. This is just an add on. What do you think that experience taught you? Do you think it taught you to like really prioritize your health and also like the power of your mind? Or because you went through that difficult 2, 3 months and I feel like you came out of it a different person. So, like, what changed?
Ooh, a lot. Influences the people in my life. Like when you go through such a traumatic event in your life, people will leave and the right people will come. So I was so blessed to have just that support. Even when they're like, where have you been? Like, where you at, Lord? It's like, we don't know where you at. Like, what's going on? You're always on social media and I'm ghost for like 2 months. So just having that support system, I think is like critical. And then also like that mindset was like, I even often think too, like, man, I've been through some stuff in my life. Like, I can overcome this. And I dove way further into like personal development, my faith into God. I was like, God, what is the reason? I'm like, what is the reason? But I know there is one. So I'm gonna be patient with you and I'm just gonna help you like guide me through this. And I think it was, to eliminate like, certain distractions in my life. I think that taught me that. And just to like really push, like continue to push, deal within your limitations that you may have, physical limitations that you may have, deal with those and everything else will fall into place and have that right circle. Because I did remove some like people from my life at that point and they try coming back every so often and I'm out like maybe that was, that's a sign, keep them away. So yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, so the last question I have for you is about Courage Driven Latina. So you joined Courage Driven Latina when it was still Purpose Driven Latina, and you were in the middle of really stepping into your next level of impact. So I'm wondering, where were you before joining, and how do you think the program helped you embody the courage or maybe provide the community to help you step into this new chapter in your life?
Oh yeah, so I was terrified. Like I was terrified from walking away from, stability versus like, what I need, like and what I need. And it wasn't that bad, but it was bad. You know, I mean, crying every night is not like that's not like a okay thing. So I was like, I'm very unhappy. Like, my goals are taking even longer now that I have to pay like, this crazy debt that I didn't know I had to pay. Our visions are not aligned. We're not moving in the same direction. And, fights started happening, which we never had before. So, I feel when you reach certain levels, your partner would either go with you or they'll drag you further down. And I felt the pull and the drag down. So when I had saw you said something, I think you had, yeah, just maybe I was in the second class. I'm not, but I would follow you. I mean, I'm following you forever
Yeah.
because, I've known you forever. So always like being a cheerleader, to on the back end, even when you're doing your cooking stuff, I was like, oh, that's cool, like, and the influencer and stuff like that. So I was always like a big fan of you. And then seeing that like you're creating this space and like purpose driven Latina, I was like, let me figure out what this is about. So I think I was kind of like reading kind of like, the whole purpose. And I was like, this is like what I need. I need help. Like I need something, so I think I had called you and I kind of told you, and that was I was still in the house and I had to
Yeah.
go to a separate room. And I
Yep.
was
I
like, hey,
remember.
this is a situation. And I'm well, like, I'm so anxious, I'm scared, I'm afraid, of taking this next step. And you were just like, you were that like very friendly voice on the other end saying like, you can do this. And like, I'm going to help you through it type of thing. And this is what this program's intended to do, is taking that step out, taking that leap, like making sure that whatever you do, that you have my support. And then not only that, but you're going to have support from other women, Latinas that are in that same category that you're in. So I want to thank you for that, for creating this space to begin with, because I'm not sure if I would have, I just needed one person and you were that one person and tell me like, you could do it, you know, because everybody else was telling me no. They were like, deal with it, not deal with it, but like, they were like, yeah, deal with it pretty much. And I'm like, I just can't, because it's not that bad. Like, you didn't get, he hasn't hit you, or like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like that bad, you're not like really in a bad situation. And I'm like, how do you know? Like, yeah, so you were one of the first people that told me that I could. And I really appreciate you for that. And then even going through the program, I remember we were talking about like yachts or something like that. And I was like, I'm gonna own a yacht one day. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna have, Purpose Driven Latina, or yeah, Courage Driven Latina on the yacht. I'm like, heck yeah, like we're gonna do this. So like, it gave me the opportunity to get really excited and like, say like, this is possible, and I love boats. Like, I'm starting to be like, call my friends who have boats, like, hey,
Yeah, I was gonna say, since
summer's
then, even
coming.
if you don't own your own yacht yet, you've definitely been on a lot of yachts. Because I mean, we follow each other, so you've been on a lot of yachts. You have a lot of friends who have yachts, so you're getting
Yeah,
closer and closer to your goal.
getting closer to my goal. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so no, it's just, that was something that I remember saying. And I was just like, and like how you said, like I have the opportunity to be around that circle and in that life. And I work really hard to be in those circles, but it's there. And it's really close. And now it's shifted, to get into the nonprofit space. Now it's shifted, like those are my priorities now, not having the boat, you just go with my friends. But now it's a little bit more different. It's providing safe spaces for other women that were in my situation. So that's kind of where my heart and my passions led to. So yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I just have to thank you because you've been such a proponent of the program as well. And like you've sent people my way where you're like, hey, this really helped me. I think it can help you as well. So if you're open to it, can people reach out to you if they have questions
Yeah.
about about the program and your experience in it.
Yeah,
Cool. All right.
absolutely.
So what, like, who else would you like to reach out to? You want to connect with more nonprofits. So maybe if there's like nonprofits in the Chicago area, a lot of people who listen to the podcast are actually in Chicago. So do you want to connect with more nonprofits, or like, what are the right people to reach out to you?
Yeah, nonprofits, especially if they have any influence in the veteran space, they're
Beautiful.
particularly that's just my big focus. Just because I am her and I want there has been a big transition in my life and my journey here in the Chicagoland area. But yeah, nonprofits, people, veterans, women veterans, if they want to get onto the Miller's list to go to women veteran events out here in the local Chicagoland area. And yeah, anybody who needs or who feels that they, really bad things has happened to them and they're in a pivotal moment in their life that they need help in that community. If they want to get my testimony, I'm here. I'm here to help.
Beautiful. Yeah. And if people want to buy homes as well or sell
That's
homes.
I sell homes. That's what I do for, yeah.
Perfect. So we have linked below your social media and all your info in the show notes so people can find your info there. Is there anything I didn't ask you about that you want to share with us?
Um, anything, just one thing that I think I live my life, not I live my life, but like something that I live by is be that example.
Mhm.
And if something's not out there that you're very passionate about, then go out there and create it and be that person, because you're going to attract, just like how you attract the most amazing like women to like your program, like you start to attract a lot of like amazing people. And I was sharing this yesterday. uh a lot of amazing opportunities are coming, for my program. Like it's like really great things are like just flowing to me, and that's just because of what I do. So don't be afraid if it's not out there and you want to create that community, like go out there and take that leap. And I think that's probably the last like closing statements that I have.
Perfect.
But that's it. It's just go out there and do it.
Amazing. I'm glad we did this interview. This has been such a good, fulfilling, fruitful conversation. And I'm sure people took many gems away from this. So, for those of you listening, if you would like to share with either of us or maybe with both of us what you took away from this episode, take a screenshot of it and make sure you tag us both because we want to see. And Lourdes, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.